Say that we are live for not the Wednesday night golf show. It's the Tuesday night golf show because of the Asian swing. We're changing it up, but we are here ready to roll from awesomemode.com. Myself, Ben Raza, here with my partner in crime, Jason Roslin. We're traveling Far East style. We got the CJ Cup out of South Korea. We'll change of pace. What do you think about it at first glance? Not the Wednesday night golf show. It's the Tuesday night golf show.
Oh, that's my fault. Just 1 second.
We're changing it up, but we are here ready to roll from Awesome.
My fault. Sorry about that. I forget to put the audio on the YouTube thing. You know, it happens. First time that I did that, though, I completely panicked and had to quit out of the show and everything else. This time I knew to just press pause. It's really not that difficult. Anyways, I'm all for a change of pace this week. I mentioned to you really quickly before we came on that I really like this golf course. It's really pretty. It's really picturesque. But as we'll talk about in a little bit, the information and the coverage that comes out of this, because they're so far away, is I think you described it as the wild, wild west. And it really is. There's lapses in coverage. When you're actually watching it this weekend, it'll just disappear for a couple of minutes and you won't know if your guy is the actual camera coverage. You won't know if your guy's ball is in the water or not. Anyways, little tilting, but all par for the course. So, yeah, I'm excited. I like a little change of pace. We haven't had a no cut since the Tour Championship, so I'm excited about that as well.
I think it's a good time for it. You know, we've gotten to in a groove in swing season. Some of these newcomers from the Corn Ferry. Now we get a big contingent of some of the better Euro players. We obviously have a batch of guys we really never see from Japan and South Korea who play extensively over there, and then we have some of the big names. Before we get started, though, as I always say, FantasyDraft sponsoring the show, which we really appreciate. Only place where you can play rake-free daily fantasy. 100% of the entry fees going towards those contests. So we obviously advocate for checking that out, saving some money, building some bankroll. If you haven't signed up, promo code AWESOMO, 7-day free trial. You can get in there. You got some golf. They got big NFL contests. A lot to be excited about. But like you said, 78 guys. It looks like fake news. Luke List and Pat Perez not withdrawn just yet. It looked like they were out. Now they're back. Not bad for a non-cut.
Yeah, and what I will say about that is you can also loop in Matt Jones, because Matt Jones was also touted as being withdrawn. And what made me nervous was they were the last three guys, I think, in the field. They all also played at the Houston Open last week. So I was nervous maybe there that they missed a connecting flight or missed a flight altogether, or they just didn't simply get there. But not the case. Totally false, at least according to some of the PGA Tour guys. So, but yeah, before we go breaking it down this week, we'll just do a quick recap of last week, because we always try and go back and make sure that we're covering as much as we can. And one of the notes that I had was, I'm officially done with trying to play weather. I think that the PGA Tour, since at least it really could have started last year, and I don't know if you remember, they blew play and there was a lightning strike and a tree hit a fan. Since then, they're not taking any chances at all. If there is a little bit of stormy weather out there, they are blowing play. So I think we got to try and take that into consideration when we do see weather come into play, that actually it's more likely to back up play rather than have them play through, stuff like that. So that was just one note that I'm done trying to play the weather. And also, in the fall swing season, the prize pools are so top heavy, and we play to win the game, right? As Dennis Green famously once said, I think it was Dennis Green. No. This was Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards. My bad. Herm Edwards. My apologies. That's it. The other one was we are who we thought they were, right? Okay.
We let him off the hook. Yes, absolutely.
The Herm Edwards, we play to win the game. I came in fifth on the FanDuel $9, and I didn't even come close to breaking even. We play to win the game. That's why it doesn't even matter. It wasn't a positive week. But I just wanted to bring that up as a point of saying, hey, look, this is the fall swing season. This is what we get. Now, there are plenty of contests out there that are a better payout structure than the $9 or $8 on FanDuel and DraftKings. But if you want to play for the big prizes, definitely take into consideration that you can come in fifth and lose, money on that contest.
Oh, absolutely. I can speak to that this year. It's amazing. And, I plan to actually dive into this a little more as we get a little off season, but I look at my last 2 years and then this year, they feel very similar and the results have been very different. And it's because you come in ninth in a handful of tournaments and you come in first in those same tournaments. 1 year is a life changer and the other is a big loss. And it just speaks to the top heavy nature of these, especially the large field GPPs. So absolutely you play to win the game with DFS golf these days. And that's what we're going to try to do here. We're going to try to win the game with the non-cut. It is pretty cool that we have, we got Brooks, we got JT, some big names. And like I said, then it's an interesting mix with guys like Hovland and Morikawa, Decky and Fleetwood. Your boy, I said that to Tim joking, but I really mean it this time. Your boy, Jordan Spieth. What do you make of kind of this top contingent of players that we have to choose from?
I'm actually really confused. I'm not upset. I'm confused that why Jordan Spieth is all of a sudden back to 10K, back to 25 to 1 to win, when we haven't really seen anything that should give him these type of stuff with a guy like Justin Thomas and Brooks Koepka in the field. I can understand if he's 25 to 1 to win, if, he's second or third on the board, and JT's not playing. But maybe there's something that we don't know. Maybe, the odds makers have gotten in with his camp and he's ready to come back and win again. I don't know. It seemed a little confusing to me. Of course, I'm going to take it because that means the ownership is going to be in the tubes.
No doubt. He is the obvious leverage spot. There's a couple things working in his favor. The first is that, this course is very generous fairways. That sticks out pretty much regardless of the weather. You're going to have the ball in play, and we know that that's been the Achilles heel for Spieth more often than not. So you can get it in play. You can keep it in play. Then you got to attack these greens. Being crafty around the green has always been his MO. That does help here. Now, it's interesting. I actually wanted to ask you about this. We've got 2 years of sample size and 2 years of data from what we can decipher. But one of the years was extremely difficult. Last year was extremely calm conditions. That makes it kind of tough to combine the data, don't you think?
Yeah, and so it's played on Jeju Island, which is, I guess similar to what they consider Maui. At least that's what we read everywhere. And I can tell you that Maui, it's blustery, right? It's an island, so it's not really protected. It doesn't have any barriers. So obviously the wind can be a factor. I think Justin Thomas and Mark Leishman at -9 2 years ago versus Brooks Koepka's -17, I think it was last year. It was wind. And then also they moved some of the tees up. So they made some of those par fours a little shorter, which obviously played into it a little bit. It obviously they wanted to bring these scores a little bit lower. They didn't want the guys to be coming so far and having to grind it out. -9 is like a major championship field almost. Especially at 7,200 yards. So definitely really interesting. Of course, we are all the way over in Jeju Island. So getting exact weather forecast is going to be probably a little confusing. But, of course, you can always try Windfinder. Looks like if this is the right one, and again, we have no idea, right? Doesn't look like we're going to have too much wind on Thursday and maybe a little on Friday. Not too much. Nice thing also, of the short field, they're putting guys off of 1 and 10 for 2.5 hours. So it's nice. There'll be no field. There shouldn't be any draws or anything like that.
Yep.
So in a no cut, and we can go a little bit into this at the end too. If we're going to build with, let's just say we really want to leverage Jordan Spieth here, and we also want to put in Justin Thomas or Tommy Fleetwood, or one of these other top end guys. How many shots down low are you willing to take per lineup in a no cut? And do you think that the way salaries broke out this week will lead you to take more?
So it's interesting because when you have a non-cut, it's a fine line between saying, well, I can open up my player pool a little bit because I get 72 holes, versus even though it's a non-cut, if your guy is just absolutely horrendous, it's the same as if he's cut because you're behind everyone else in the field and you're almost boxed out immediately. So I am willing to do it in certain spots. It's funny. I actually take a showdown NFL mentality for anyone watching that does play showdown, where you have to build a narrative with your lineup. Yep. So if you take a couple guys up top, it's not like the order of the golfers, but you're really going to say, okay, these two are going to do my heavy lifting. Now, where is the opportunity cost coming in? These two guys on the bottom, what is a reasonable outcome for them? And is that enough to pay up for those other two? And if you think the answer is yes, and in this case, when we work down, I have a couple names I want to run by you. I got some guys down there. I think you can get away with pairing two guys above 10K this week.
Yeah, me too. I think that down low where a no cut leads you is birdie makers, right? We saw with Keith Mitchell, who's one we'll probably talk about a little bit, last year, just make 23 birdies. He came in, I think it didn't even come in the top 10 of the tournament, but DraftKings scoring, he was way up there because of that birdie or better. So, all right, we'll move on to our segment where we'll start breaking down the players. And this week, because we're moved to Tuesday, ownership projections from Osmo will be out here in probably just a little while. I saw the golfer projections are out just before we came on. So we're going to play a little bit of a guess your ownership projections game for the top end guys. We're not going to go all the way down the field. We'll just do it for the top end guys. And we'll do three in succession. So I've got JT at 25%, Brooks at about 10, and Matsuyama at about 14. What do you like or dislike about those, and where are you guessing?
So I think in terms of the order, I'm definitely with you. I actually think that JT's I would take the over on 25%. I have a feeling just the combination, he won this event 2 years ago. He played 2 weeks ago and he looked very crisp. People, I've been saying when I've talked about this previously, I think what happens in these type of events, when you don't have strokes gain data, people say, well, man, I don't know what to do. Well, let me look at recent form and let me look at course history. When you look at both of those things, it leads you right to JT. You look at Brooks's course history, yeah, he won last year, but he was awful at Shriners, and that adds to this narrative. Brooks doesn't care. Brooks is in Vegas running amok. Brooks is at Tao in the bathtub, like just not focused on golf. I think you can leverage that. I really do. Now, if he comes in at 1/3, 1/4 the ownership of JT, even though in a vacuum I like JT a little better, I'm going to roll the dice with Brooks on some of those teams.
Yeah, and I think the other thing playing into Brooks as well, which I probably should have seen when guessing my salaries, was that he's coming off of that meniscus tear surgery, and clearly the approach numbers looked awful. And we saw similar when he came back from his wrist injury last year or a couple of years ago before he went on that crazy run. It was similar. Approaches seem to be the last thing that comes back for him, which makes sense. He's got great touch around the greens for a guy that hits the ball so long, and there's no denying that. It's the irons that really get him into trouble. So I'm going to wait until I see those come back. Even if I see it in round one, I see the greens in regulation pick up a little bit. We're not going to get strokes gained. But, of course, if I see the GIR number pick up in round one and we see a good score, then I'll probably focus on him in showdowns. I do think it's a great course fit. He can really use his length and use that precision off the tee, put it where he wants.
Showdown is going to be wild this week, public service announcement with that, because what most people do is they immediately go to the strokes gained. You look for those putters that are – we're not going to have that luxury. So like you said, if you dig into those preliminary stats, I think you're going to be at a big advantage if you do the work to really dive into that. And it'll be interesting. Obviously, we should mention real quick, and people, I hope our chat's a smart group of fellas. The reason we're doing the show tonight is because these lineups lock tomorrow night. So don't be noodling around trying to wait for Thursday morning. That's not going to work. I can guarantee you'll be in a world of hurt if you do that.
Yeah, 7 p.m., I think, right? I mean, I saw the first tee time was 8 a.m. over there, and we're 11 hours behind. Does that make it 9? I don't know. I was asking this morning.
I still haven't figured it out. It's definitely tomorrow night. I'll just say that. I don't have it in front of me. So, yeah, just make sure to get those lines in, and that's why we're doing the show tonight. And we'll still be, obviously, in Slack and answering questions leading up to lock. But
absolutely.
What do you make I mentioned the big three. What
the next
Becky real quick, though. I just want to hear your thoughts on him.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I think his price is a little high, and I think that's why we're seeing the 13%, or at least my projection at around 13%, a little bit lower than maybe what we used to see, especially him in no-cut fields. He's a great in no-cut fields, and par 72 is over 7,200 yards. So I actually like this spot for Matsuyama here, especially in the GPP this week. I think at 13%, you can definitely get leverage. He is expensive, though, so he's got to go out and find form pretty quick because it didn't look great over the fall swing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment for sure.
29th in a missed cut, right? I'm pretty sure in his 2 starts. So
it hasn't been super crisp.
Yeah, he relied on around the green, which is interesting. Approach numbers look really bad, but it's a decky. Those can pop up really, really quickly. So the next batch of guys, I got all at about 18%. Again, kind of surprising. Victor Hovland, Tommy Fleetwood, and Colin Morikawa. I get it. Victor Hovland has been insanely good. But to be priced $1,700 more than his teammate in a field like this, I'm very surprised. And I'm surprised to see so many people just easily clicking that button and getting that ownership up close to 20% on Hovland.
I am too. It's funny, the shiny new toy, I get it, but as you just alluded to, there's multiple shiny new toys, one of which is Matthew Wolff, who's significantly cheaper, and we'll get to him. I like Fleetwood a lot here. I think he's going to be pretty popular. I've mentioned earlier that I see a little, and I'm not going crazy with it, but I do see some comparisons to Chapultepec, which is the WGC Mexico course, and Fleetwood has torn that apart, plays a little elevation, as does this, and I think you can glean something from that. So he'd be my preferred target. Morikawa and Hovland are super impressive. I don't know exactly how they'll react here. We'll have to see, but for me, if I had to pick one, it would be Fleetwood.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way too. And I actually think a little bit of comparison to Sawgrass, actually, just because of the yardage and the kind of target golf that it forces you to play in certain instances. And we saw Fleetwood obviously almost, win it out there. It came in, I believe, the top 5 this year. So like Fleetwood quite a bit, not going to lie to you. Next batch of guys. Oh, I'm sorry, Morikawa, quickly on him. Looks like he's going to come in 18 to 20% almost every tournament, no matter where he's priced. How do we get leverage on?
It's tough. And it's one of those situations. If he does come in at that, I'm not going to be able to get over. And it's no reflection of him. I think he's great. You were certainly early on how good he was going to be. I have too many other guys as we work down into the 9s, and we've already mentioned I have some priorities up top as well. So I just can't devote more than 1/5 of my portfolio to a guy like Morikawa.
Totally understand. How about 1/5 of the portfolio? We talked a little bit about Spieth. Numbers were not good. I mean, Northern Trust and BMW, the ball striking numbers went from gaining 0.4 and losing 0.6, which was some of his best stats he had all year. A lot of layoff. The people on Twitter that communicate with me that know him or work at the golf course that he goes to says he's been out there every day. You playing him at all?
Spieth?
Yeah.
So it's going to be ownership dependent. When we get because obviously Osimo, some of the best, if not the best in the business at predicting that ownership, it's super important in a field like this. If it looks like I can take 12% and get 2.5x or something, I will be playing Spieth in that regard. If he's going to be up there with these other guys, then it's a very simple, I'll wait and see. If he burns me, I know he can still, but I have other guys. Like I said, we haven't even discussed some of those 9K people, and there's a lot that I think you could even start in that range if you wanted to be different.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. If we want to fade all of them, which has actually worked the last couple of weeks. I mean, the winners, 8,000, 7,900, 7,800. Last week, almost, 60% of them missed the cut. Not going to have that problem this week. But if you were starting your salaries with somebody in the 9s, who's your go-to?
I mean, well, so it's a really interesting range because RCB is clearly overpriced. I think that's a given. But he's playing well and he has the course history. So then you've got Jason Day, who, thank God he took a break.
Day. He's here. We hope. We don't know. We hope he's here.
Another guy where it's a pretty simple thing. He was, if not the best, on the short list of best around the green players in the world. And then all of a sudden he lost it. And this is not someone that's a young guy. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if that was an outlier last year and we see him regain it, but that was the difference. He just wasn't as crisp, not nearly as good as we've seen. So my favorite guy in the 9K range, I'm not sure I'll start teams with him. It's actually a dark horse. It's Sergio. And it's somebody who he won over in the Netherlands at the KLM, followed up with a 7th in Spain. Has not played here. I don't think he's on many people's radars, and I really like the setup for him at this type of course.
Yeah, definitely interesting. We saw, man, he burned me so many times. I was just making sure. So Jason Day and Matsuyama are both in that skins challenge against Tiger Woods, which is Monday. I thought it was on Sunday at first. I'm like, how are they going to play in this tournament? But anyways, it'll be on Monday in Japan. I take it Korea to Japan flight is obviously not very long if they're going to go play competitively 18 holes the next day. Anyways, we're on to Sergio Garcia here. Oh, boy. He burned me so many times at the end of the year last year. And the win was impressive. The 7th place was equally as impressive. But when I look at his stats against the PGA Tour and him not gaining strokes ball striking since the U.S. Open is very tough for me to get behind. I know that the form is completely different from the U.S. Open, obviously, but I am a bit nervous. I would rather pay $300 less and go get a guy that we already just mentioned in Matt Wilf. I mean, he just showed me 2 weeks ago that he can lose strokes on his approaches and put up over 100 DraftKings points. That's insane. That means when his irons clicks one week, he's going to probably win or at least come close to it. So I'm good at backing Wolf at 8,800 and taking him over Garcia. But if I had to go with a guy in the 9K range, go Gary Woodland. For you, what do you think? Is it price is a little too expensive? I know, 55th 2 weeks ago was nothing good. He could not sustain momentum. But second place here last year seems like a pretty good course fit for him. What do you make of Woodland?
I have no problem with him. He's someone we know he's going to gain off the tee. A little expensive, but nothing that's too crazy. I think he's paying for a little of that course history from last year. It's going to determine with the putter. That's been hit and miss like most of these top guys. When it cooperates, he's going to be there. When it doesn't, it's a strain for him. So I have no problem with him and Leishman are kind of, if I don't mind using them, but I'm not forcing them. The guy I wanted to ask you about, so Sungjae Im went over last week, beat up on a weak field and actually won over, I believe it was in Korea.
Yep.
What do you think about him here? I believe I want to say he's from Jeju Island, wherever we're at, but regardless, he's been over there. Do you like him at, the high 9K range?
Yeah, 41st here last year, and they had all the PGA Tour Korean players on a panel interviewing them today, and they were all asked, "Do you think you can win? And if you don't think you can win, what other Korean in the field do you think will win?" And every single one of them piled on and said Sungjae after Sung Kang went first, and it seemed like at the end of it, they were just joking around. And of course, Sungjae's response was, and he was kind of in the middle towards the back of the 7 of them. He was like, "Oh, great. Thanks for all the pressure, guys." I don't make anything of it. I think it's honestly kind of funny. I would hope that he would be able to absorb that and take a shot like that, and try and turn it around. But yeah, the form has been super impressive, even through the fall swing. It was really impressive. And the price has caught up to it, right? Putting him $300 behind Jordan Spieth. Okay, maybe not a big deal. $400 behind Colin Morikawa, who's been fantastic. I mean, only $600 behind Tommy Fleetwood, who's been a perennial all-star for a couple of years now. I know he hasn't had the win, neither has Tony Finau, but Fleetwood and Finau have been absolute all-stars for most DFS lineups. So yeah, I think because of that, we're not going to see 20% ownership either. So yeah, maybe I'm going to have some, but I don't think he's going to make that first or core lineup, however you want to describe it.
I'm pretty much in the same boat. I think he makes a fine play, but again, not the priority for me. And it's really nothing against him. It's just we're talking about really good players up here. You can't play them all, and you got to kind of sort through it. And there's a couple guys in a buy low spot, and then somebody like Sergio, who I think sets up well. The 2 Australians for me are the most, or I guess I could say 3 if I want to loop in Day. But I mean, Cam Smith, I think is wildly overpriced. We're banking on that course history to continue. And then Leishman, if he's healthy, certainly apt to compete. But it seems like every time you think he's healthy, then he's back with the back issues.
Yeah, he is. He is one of the most confusing golfers out there, in my opinion, is Mark Leishman. Because this course should set up really good for him. A couple of years ago, he almost won it. So if you had a one-off this week, let's say that you've built out your lineup. Let's say you've got Tommy Fleetwood and you're looking for that, third. Let's say you go down to Matt Wolff and Tommy Fleetwood. Now you're looking for that third guy in the 9K range to fill out the lineup. You're going to go a little bit aggressive. In a one-off situation, Mark Leishman at 9,200 for you, or do you want to pay up for Sung J M at 9,700 and maybe force yourself to go from like a Harold Varner to a Matt Jones, Charlie Hoffman?
That's the thing. The difference to me at the bottom is a little more drastic than the difference between a guy like Sung J M and Leishman, or Wolf and Leash. There's interchangeable pieces up there, whereas you're talking about guys in the low sevens, Dahmen, maybe Grillo, whatever. We'll get into him. But other people that I think are a little more useful than, say, Kiradach, CT Pan, Charlie Hoffman. That's where that salary comes back. And you're weighing the opportunity costs. So I'm going to probably look to save a little bit where I can with guys like Wolf, Danny Willett in that same range as well.
Yeah, what do you make of their surge in form? I mean, he totally disappeared from the earth for a couple of years, right? I mean, I dubbed him. I'll come out and say it. I'm not afraid to I dubbed him as the worst ever major champion in the history of major champions, especially on the Masters. He's kind of proven me wrong over the last year or so. 4 weeks ago, he had that win, adding a couple more top 25s in his last two starts. Danny Willett looks like he's a pretty good golfer again.
Absolutely. He's found, and there's a lot of guys, certainly with more pedigree than Danny Willett, but there is a handful of guys that have kind of found their form over in Europe over these past month, and I'm not sure everyone's fully paying attention. Sergio's one of them, to be honest. But Will, you said he had a big win over in Europe, and the game is just clearly back from what was – I mean, he was completely done. It was sad to see. He was not able to beat it all.
I mean, not even close to cuts in any field, whether it be the European field or alternate events or what have you. But let's stick on the European train for a second here, because a guy that made waves over this past weekend with a really actually quite funny thing that happened with his fiance on the course. She was getting out of the bathroom and on the porta-john and slammed the door, and Tyrrell Hatton, who I'm talking about, was actually in his backswing when she did it. He stepped away, and it was a funny joke that he called over to her. Anyways, speaking of Europeans that found their form over the last month, back-to-back top 20s now. After that miscut 4 weeks ago, a top 20 year in 2018. At 8,200, that's kind of checking most boxes, to be honest.
I'm with you. Ty Hatton's a guy that we have seen him compete in some strong fields. He actually had a really nice run in the majors last year. Can really kind of do it all. The putter is, I would say, the weak club, and he needs to get better, but he can scramble. Certainly a fine ball striker, and we've just seen it. This is not going to be a spot. I mean, a field like this is nothing to him, and he is in good form. So price is reasonable. There's not a ton of guys that I really even love in that range. You got Glover, Fratelli, Benny On, who no one is talking about, but fire up Ty Hatton. I'm with you.
So in a situation like Ty Hatton versus Lucas Glover versus Dylan Fratelli, both of those two guys I just mentioned have gotten top 10s in the last couple. Lucas Glover actually played here in 2017 with a good start. If you could only have one of those three, who would it be?
It would be Ty Hatton. Fratelli to me is the big wild card, just because I really have no clue what to make of him. He's on fire, then he misses a cut. He gains 10 strokes with the approach, then he's losing. It's very erratic. So I still think that he's got kind of pure GPP upside in the sense of, when you can't kind of peg where it's coming from, there's a lot of range of outcomes. There's a lot of variance within the game. But all in all, I have to lean with Ty Hatton out of those three.
I think I do too. How about, all right, I'll throw one more just because he's only $100 more. And he actually does seem like he's getting a bit of traction. And he's got back-to-back top 15s here. Ches Reavie.
Oh, God.
I know.
Crazy.
He just crushed me 2 weeks ago, by the way. Totally crushed me.
That's what Ches does.
Yep.
And then he makes hole-in-ones. Why? Nobody knows. Yeah, I'm not Ches is a very, I'll be honest, Ches is someone that I always have a difficult time kind of projecting. He gets hot. You've mentioned a lot, and I totally agree. He's a form golfer. He gets on runs, then he disappears. He did miss the cut at the Shriners. It was just pretty bad. Before that, he had been really dialed in with the irons, and he couldn't putt at all. So I think he's going to fall by the wayside for me. It's nothing super specific. I'll say this: if it looks like it's going to be a little more difficult, I may look to him. I don't love him with the idea of the winner being around 20 under.
Same here. It just doesn't seem like the type of tournament I like to play. I mean, he went on a stretch at the U.S. Open and Travelers where he won. Those were not 20 opens. 20 unders. So totally agree. Okay, mid 800s now. I kind of skipped over him. Matt Wolff is there. We talked about him a lot. It seems like both you and I like him, and I just don't see a reason not to. But how about the Chilean, we'll say prodigy now because he won, right? Chilean prodigy is same age as Matt Wolff. And then we've got local, I can't call him a star. I'm going to call him, kind of like a villain almost. Seems like the way he put himself after he won at the Shriners 2 weeks ago, kind of villainized himself a little bit in the eyes of the South Korean media. Now he's on the South Korean soil, about to step foot and play, and I'm talking about Kevin Na. What do you make of that? Have you looked into the story a little bit? I have. And what do you make of Niemann versus Na?
So Niemann is a guy, we know he's ridiculously talented, but his game is pretty, I don't want to say black and white. It's just we know what he's going to do. He gains almost automatically with the ball striking. He's aggressive off the tee. He can't chip. He just can't. Now, I will say it's becoming a thing with him. If you're going to use him and hope on the greens, that bent grass would be the place to do it. And this is bent grass. He's had a lot more success on bent than Bermuda in his career so far. So take that for what it's worth. The book is not written just yet, but if scrambling is going to be important, I certainly like him a lot less. If it's just bomb it down there, get crazy hot, hit all the greens, it's hard not to like him. Kevin Na, 14 strokes putting. I don't think I'm going to try to piggyback off that ridiculousness.
Insane. It really is, and he's not played well here the last 2 years, and it doesn't seem like a course, especially if it's going to be wet out there. They've gotten like 56 inches of rain. Matt Jones brought up on my podcast a couple of days ago, just insane amount of rain. It's not going to help Kevin Na. That's for sure. Kevin Na likes it fast and dry, like we saw in Vegas, where he can hit his low little hook and ropes out there 330. Those low hook and ropes aren't going to go anywhere if the ground is wet out there. So he'll be hitting at 270 this week. 52nd and 47 in 2 years here. I think we're going to see wicked low ownership, which means I'll play him in the $8. But I'm not. He's not going to make the main lineup. I think he's actually hyped himself up a little bit too much and villainized himself, like I said. And I think he's going to put too much of himself on his shoulders, and I can't see a top 25 for him this week.
No, I'm not there either. He's on the fringe of anything for me, and too many other guys. Even in a week 8, I don't love this range as a whole. We mentioned the guys up top, and I don't mind Hatton, but it's not a range I'm looking to really jam at all.
Rory Sabatini had a really up and down last week as we transitioned below 8K. Had a couple of rounds, 600, very similar to Justin Rose, actually. Rose had that. Rose was the Italian was last week, where he had shot 81 one day and came back 64 the next day. I think it was 7 over and 7 under, something insane. Similar to Rory Sabatini, tons of world traveling for Sabatini. Are you going, like I'm hearing a lot of people, and paying $100 less to Corey Connors? Are you skipping the top sevens altogether?
It's more that, honestly. I have no problem. Corey Connors is another one. We've seen the book now. We know what he is. He is an incredible ball striker, and he cannot putt. But he's one of those guys where he's still in the form of, if you get the putting weak, the ball striking is going to be there. Sabatini's he looked like the run was over, and now, boom, back at it maybe. I think for me, it's a pretty dead range. I looked at Ian Poulter, which, he's someone that's had some success here. But all in all, I don't have a ton of interest in any of these guys.
Poulter's form it's the worst it's been in the last 2.5 years.
Yep.
Miscut last week, 60th 4 weeks ago. I'm going to stay away. I know the course is set up nicely for him, but maybe we're in just a little bit of a downward regression here for him. Abraham Answer has been the most frustrating golfer besides the guy priced $100 below Emiliano Grillo over this fall swing. Are you going to play either of those guys? And let's talk about Answer first, so then we can go into Grillo.
Yeah, good idea. So Answer, he's someone that I've tried to actually buy during the swing season, and it has not worked. Really just hasn't been playing too well. His off the tee game is his strength, and it hasn't been terrible, but it certainly hasn't been great. The rest of his game is not as strong, so it's really not a formula right now for him. I wanted to really look to maybe continue to buy low, but I just don't see it. So you have him. Scott Piercy is also right there, who for an incredible ball striker, he's pretty streaky with the irons. You could look to him as a one-off. I have no issue there. But all in all, I don't have any interest in any of them. And then Scott Piercy's lost 5 strokes putting in 2 consecutive events, which is just god-awful. What are you doing with Grillo? I need you to go first here, please.
So one of the guys on Twitter, Nelson Adcock, he put out something today where he's really stat and regression oriented and much smarter than I in that department. He put out something today that basically took strokes gained putting and said, here are the guys that are putting so well that it's helping their game so drastically over their baseline. And here are the guys that are putting so badly that it's hurting their game so much. And of course, at the top of the list was Jordan Spieth at 1/4 of a shot per round. And at the bottom of the list was Emiliano Grillo of losing 1/4 of a shot per round off of his bid. It's pretty remarkable how bad at putting he is. I mean, we're talking five straight events where he's lost more than 3 strokes putting. It's insane to me that he can't figure it out. Then he tweets out today. Have you seen the tweet today from him?
You know how many notifications I was getting people
with the ball going in? Oh my gosh. It's insane. It's honestly exactly what I think about when Grillo's putting. The ball must be jumping out of the hole. Tell people what it is if they haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, just center cut. Each V3, I believe, sent it out, and it's just Grillo's center cut ball just directly in the middle of the hole. Somehow just pops right out. It's really disturbing stuff. I mean, Nelson does amazing work. He color-coded it, and I'll tell you this much. Grillo had his own separate color at the bottom. Just legitimately in a different category right now. And I just want to clarify what you just said about losing those strokes. He's missing the cut in a lot of those events. So he's losing 3 or 4 strokes putting in 36 holes, not 72. He takes it to a new level.
It's insane. I just don't understand for a guy as talented as he is. And I think he's definitely one of the better players outside of the United States and Europe, in my opinion, and could be a lot better, obviously. Why he cannot figure it out. But, that things happens. We see Graham Dillette can't figure out, around the green. So it does happen with some of these guys. Now, we get him for 4 days. Are you willing, because we don't get Shot Tracker, we're not going to know if he misses 6-footers. Are you going to roster him over Ryan Palmer this week still, or are you going to go to Ryan Palmer?
Well, I'll say this.
Or play both. Or
play both. That's what I'm going to do. I like Joel Dahman over both of them.
Okay.
But Grillo... Listen, in all seriousness, here's the deal. He has killed me in some ridiculously bad spots. He is not playing well enough, even with the putting, where he's not even getting in contention. Now, we see golf is a crazy game. These guys, it seems like Grillo is never going to play well again. But he will. He'll get it back. It will regress. He's never going to be a great putter probably, but he could be average. He could get on a streak where he's gaining 0 strokes. So I'm not going to just give up on him. If the ownership dictates at 7,300 that I should have some shares, I will. I try to keep a level head, even though it's very tilting. I like Joel Dahman, though. The irons have come back. He was really good at Shriners. I don't think a lot of people are looking to him. Again, the guy I want to ask you about, if you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. Do you have any interest in playing Phil?
You know, I felt like a couple of weeks ago at the Shriners, he actually his swing looked different. It looked like he was trying to actually hit a fairway. Whereas prior to that, he was just hitting bombs, right? And we saw him go through, let's see, I'm up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight tournaments where he lost strokes off the tee. That's because he could not find a fairway. At the Shriners, he had a much more controlled swing. He was 10 yards behind most, the two other guys in his group. That's fine. He's preparing for the Champions Tour. But in the meantime, he'll probably make a few cuts. He'll probably put in a couple of top 25s. If he top 25s this week, with the way we know he likes to play aggressively, he could be important or of value. But he also is here because he's got that streak of top 50 in the world on the line. I think he needs like a top 35 this week to keep that going. It's something to think about. I'm sure Phil likes to have it.
For sure. Yeah. Some, friend of the show, Mike Campbell, pointed that out. And it is interesting. I think what you have to ask about Phil, if you think he's completely done, then clearly you're not going to play him. If you think that he still has some top end equity left in him, if you get it right, this is very generous fairways. We know Phil can score. He's probably still going to make some big numbers, but if it's easy conditions, I think you can at least consider it. I'm not sure I'll get there, but again, it's really just a personal of what you think Phil's overall outlook is, and go from there. But this is where it starts to get murky when my boy Jazz gets in the mix at flat 7.
Yes.
I don't know, now we start to get what you talked about earlier. You want to take a couple guys up top. These are the guys you're going to have to start looking to.
Yeah, let's talk about Jazzy Jazz and Harold Varner, our buddy named after Fresh Prince character, right? Good old Jazzy Jazz. He's been impressive when we've seen him. There's absolutely no denying it. Looks like he's in pretty good form playing on the Asian Korean Tour, back-to-back fourth-place finishes. 7K, do you play him over Harold Varner, who's also playing pretty well? If you've built a balanced lineup and 7K is your lowest price and you're going to get one of them, who are you going to go to? Or is it going to just be, well, actually, I take that back because then you could get Joel Damon. I'm guessing you're going to take Joel Damon over both of those.
Probably, but if say I had Damon in the lineup, but I needed another guy, as much as, and don't get me wrong, Jazz, it's someone that certainly the name caught my eye early, and I saw him on Europe. He wasn't doing much. Clearly, I believe it was the U.S. Open. When he hung around, and then Sunday was
PGA Championship.
The most extreme conditions, and yes, he fell back a bit, but he really represented himself well there. Yeah, having said that, I tend to go with a more known commodity. Harold Varner is a guy I've seen a ton of. He's playing pretty well. He's going to gain off the tee. I feel just a little better about going to him if I was forced into that range. Now, I don't want to get too crazy. Luke List is, again, he's weekend at Bernie's back from the dead. He's in the field. He's starting to find some form. Do you have any interest in him? We know he's going to be aggressive off the tee.
Yeah, and he joins 4 other guys, so 5 total that played in Houston or were supposed to play in Houston and are making it over here. I would rather, for Luke List, to me, I think in this situation, I think Johnny Vegas probably is a similar type player. So I think if I'm going to roster Luke List, I guess I would rather just go to Johnny Vegas here. I think Vegas has been in a little better form, although head-to-head last week, Luke List obviously beat him as List made the cut. List is on back-to-back, made cuts. I think Vegas has a little bit more pedigree. And if it is going to be really wet, Vegas tends to play really well there. I don't know. That's in a one-off. I would rather, if I'm going to go start below 7K, if I'm going to go, I actually like the world traveler Troy Merritt a little bit here this week at 6,400. His birdie or better percentage is really good. I think it was 11th on tour last year. Guy loves to travel, so I think you can have a little bit of him. And then in between them, how about Adam Long? Looks like he's been just playing super well. No cut event at the WGC when he was in it last time. He paid off value. Putted really well. So, yeah, I think I like Adam Long quite a bit this week. I mean, 3 straight top 25s in the full swing. made it all the way to the BMW. He just seems like he's a pretty good golfer, better than I think what I've given him credit for.
Absolutely. He was someone, when he won, it was like, wow, what a lucky win. Never going to see this guy again. He's going to be on exemption, and he's just going to be missing cuts. He has really followed that up with impressive. He's been in the mix. He hangs in, makes cuts. Adam Long is just a very solid player. There's no doubt about it. So Brian Stewart is going to be, I think, sneaky popular, as Chad just pointed out, and we will have to wait and see. But he is playing well. There's no denying that. He was 17th at Safeway, 4th at Shriners. Pretty much the entire game is in form. Now, he does have strong Bermuda splits, which isn't ideal. But at 6,900, you're not going to find a ton of guys playing that well at that price.
Yeah, and the approaches are streaky, right? In the 4 events over the fall, we went losing to gaining 6 to losing to gaining 6. So a bit streaky, but and he's definitely not going to gain off the tee that much. He's just not long, but he's going to be consistent. He's going to be right around there. Yeah, I'm okay with him. I think at 6,900, I put him up in a simulation against Troy Merritt, and I probably get them to be relatively even. So with that, I think that in a one-off, I would take the $500 and see what I could get with it. If I couldn't get anything with it, then I have absolutely no problem playing him over Merritt.
Fair enough.
How about in between? There's 2 guys that I find really interesting. Charlie Hoffman at 6,500. Yeah, I know, right? And then Vaughn Taylor.
Okay.
Another guy that had a very good year last year. They're cheap, but I feel like one of these guys is going to really pay off this week. Whether it be, somebody 6,500 and below from the PGA Tour. We saw Ryan Palmer do it last year in a very similar scenario. I like him again this week. We kind of brushed over him really quickly. I do like him again this week. I feel like 6,500 and below, or I guess you can include in Keith Mitchell if you want to. Are you ready to back him? It looked really bad 2 weeks ago.
He did. And that was a spot I kind of didn't like him in. And
yeah, neither of us did.
Yeah, we weren't really there. And
you talked me out of him, which was good, and I appreciate it because I was kind of involved. And then you're like, we need to do a little deeper dig on.
Yeah, Killer Keith. I mean, he's tough. We know the upsides there. We know when he gets going, he gets going. But when he doesn't, like, he has real DFL equity. He's that type of player. So in a non-cut, I think it's interesting. The guy I thought you were going to bring up, I'm not going to lie, is Affie Barnrat, who he is in bad form as well.
He burned me last week, actually.
And it's just a guy it's very tough to gauge exactly where the game is at. Now, again, this is very anecdotal. He had 2 top 5s in WGC Mexico. So we love that course. He certainly has, Southeast Asian roots. Got some splits that you would like, but at the same time, that recent form is a little concerning. Really has not been playing well.
No, here's what I'll say, because I mentioned that he burned me last week. I had just a really good Euro line. It was, 5K up top. So as we talked about on the show, I played it and played him, and he shot 300 day 1 and then shot 5 over day 2, or 204 over. It was good on day 1 and awful on day 2. So maybe that means form isn't too far behind with, at least one good day there in Italy. So yeah, we know he this is a big money event for him. $9.5 million is the purse, or $9.75 million is the purse. He likes to play in these, big money events. I'm okay with him. I guess I would rather spend my equity down here on a guy that was just brought up in chat to me, or I just saw it. I apologize, I wasn't looking earlier, but by our buddy Jack. Wyndham Clark bombs the ball and putts it really well. Nothing else is really – around the green's good. Irons are atrocious, but do you think he could get away with it at this golf course?
Well, so it's you rarely, if ever, say this about irons, but he's in the bucket of like Grillo putting. His irons, he needs to rest because nobody can handle it like this. Even him. We've talked about this at length on this show to give us both credit. We said with Bo Hostler, he's getting away with it for a little while, but you can't survive with your irons like that. And he had a stretch where he lost it completely. And Wyndham Clark was getting away with it for a while. And look what happened. You can't live that dangerously. So Boy, for me, I would just rather get $100 and go to Vegas or Adam Schenk. Or Troy Merritt is a really interesting name that I have not heard anywhere else. So he's someone that shouldn't be popular. And, you can look to other options in that range. And yes, Chad, I am trying to conceal my disdain for Charlie Hoffman because I cannot stand him. His game is just dust right now. I don't know what to make of it.
The thing with Hoffman is when conditions are going to be poor, I feel like that helps him. I feel like he's apt to plan it. We saw him come pretty close to the first round lead the year that Thomas Peters jumped out at the Masters. That was tough conditions there. So I guess if we were going to see that, I'd be more apt to play him. But for the most part, I think I would rather go down and just go down the bucket of Wyndham Clark. But honestly, if let's say that he goes out and when you look at his stats, let's say he goes out and gains 3 strokes putting and gains 1 off the tee. Does he even get into the top 20 with how bad his irons are right now? I mean,
No.
it's probably close, but that's the issue. You're going to have to hope for birdie streaks, and you don't really want to rely on that, when you're talking about GPP. 6,300 is not bad for it. Is there anybody lower that you'd rather have than him?
Well, I mean, this is where it gets very murky. If I would rather play, and this is purely blind, I would just rather play Max Homa. He's just someone I think's in a little better spot. But honestly, I'm going to try to avoid Max Homa's playing terrible golf right now, and Danny Lee is the only other name that I would even consider. Now, I defer to you on. Do you have any interest in playing some of these guys from South Korea that we may not know a lot about?
Yeah, I can tell you them, but one quick question. I'm seeing it may just be an error on my end. Did Chase Koepka play somewhere last week?
Chase Koepka? Oh, yeah. So Brooks last week?
Yeah, last week. I'm seeing him come in 6th place somewhere last week. And I know he came in.
I don't know. It might have been at the home game because we saw him at Shriners. He was hanging in, and then
home game, and he still
fell off the map. I don't know. He was hustling with Big Earn, maybe. I have no idea where he was last week.
Yeah, I can't find it anywhere, so I'm going to guess that's probably just an error. He put up 80 points, went into the weekend basically with the lead and almost finished dead last. Do you have any interest, 1 share at all?
No.
Okay. All right, now let's go on to our
So just for the record, like Brooks, these tournaments are being like, hey, Brooks, come play and your brother can play? Okay. I just want to make sure I have this under.
I mean, that's what I'm going with. I believe I can't see any other reason why he's getting starts right now. It blows my mind. Okay, so yeah, let's go to the South Koreans, and there's a couple from the Asian tours. There's only one name that I actually recognized, and that was Soo-Min Lee, and that's because he was a prodigy like 4 years ago on the European tour. He won at 21 years old, the Shenzhen International. Know that he loves to bomb the ball, but he's not even min-price on DraftKings. He's min-price on FanDuel, probably min-price on FantasyDraft. I don't know if you have that up. Soo-Min Lee. He would be the only one that I have any interest in at all. How about you?
Yeah, it's pretty dicey. It seems unnecessary to really reach, and he's actually not the min on FantasyDraft, which he's 11K, which is not great. And I was talking about this earlier. Some of these guys, Sang-Hoon Park is in the official World Golf Rankings is up there relative to some of these other guys, but again, you can rise in the ranks really quickly if you're not over here. You can beat up on weaker fields and really rise. So Soo-Min Lee is someone at least I've seen a bit over in Europe here and there, but I probably won't have any of them.
At this point, I would rather play a guy at min price that has miscut or withdrawn each of the last 5 weeks, and that's Michael Kim, and I don't plan on having him in there.
No.
Even against weak fields when we go this low, the only guy that's playing, who's got 3 top 10s in his last 5 starts is this Jeong Woo Ham. 1-7-3, 48-39 in his last 5. Other than that, Sumin Lee, like I said, he's 7-1-9 in his last 3. So if you're looking purely at recent form, Sumin Lee would be the guy that I would play. But honestly, find the extra $100 and go get Wyndham Clark, go get Troy Merritt on DraftKings. If you need to throw him in, I believe Max Homa is the min on FanDuel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yep. And, again.
A.H. Lee as well. I would much rather have either of those guys.
Definitely. I always go with the more known commodity, even in bad form. I guess, can those guys hang around? But what you see, I want people to take notice of this. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. But you see a lot of times in something like this, in a WGC, one of these unknown guys, they shoot, 5 under the first day, and it's like, oh my God, I should have see where they finish. Because when they finish in 57th, it didn't end up like you thought. So it's not like they can't get in the mix for a little while, but 72 holes against some of these top end guys is a really tough ask.
On that note, I'm glad that you just brought that up. First thing is, I stress this, and I'm talking to myself here, so don't think that I'm talking to just the general audience here, you guys. I'm talking to myself as well. Looking at your lineups after day one will be the most infuriating thing that you could do. Whether you're in first or you're in last, I guarantee you is going to change by Sunday. Now, I tell people I really look on Fridays because of cut sweat. Especially this year with every single cut being 6 of 6 being 3%. I look on Fridays. You don't need to look on Fridays this week for the next 3 weeks, actually. And it's going to be overnight viewing. So it's nice for people that really like to focus on football on Sunday. That is going to be a nice, welcoming thing. Golf will be done and hopefully paid out by the time football even starts. But in a no cut, if you're dead out of it Saturday night, you could be in it Sunday.
Definitely. So what you do, people, let me give you a tip. If you, for some reason, look on Thursday and you are winning a tournament, you need to call up your dumbest friend. You send them the screenshot and you tell them, I'll sell this to you. You give me 10K and you can get this 50K right here. Because your real equity on the $8 ticket is about $12 at that point. So just take them, tell them you'll sell it to them for 5K and then watch the money roll in, because it doesn't mean anything. I hate to break it to you. It's great to start good, but all that matters is Sunday back 9 in a non-cut. So I 100,000% echo those thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any more? Did we miss?
I think.
Did we miss any from chat or anything like that? Hey, I just saw a name, Andrew, and it's not the Andrew that I'm about to bring up, but are you playing Andrew Putnam at all? He totally surprised me a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Boy, not really. He's a little too pricey for me. I know you've been on him, and he's been very good. There's no denying it. I just don't know if I'll get to him in the mid-range.
Yeah, it seems a little pricey, but continues to play well. So I'm glad the last guy we'll talk about before our hot takes is Andrew Putnam. Nothing better than that. All right, so we'll do one random hot take, which is going to be, give me of those random 10 golfers that are from the South Korean tour, the Japanese tour, and the Asian golf tour. Give me your low that's not named Jazzy Jazz.
So where is he? I have him too. Okay, we got Jung Gong Wang.
Okay.
Would be my random guy if he's going to beat all the other creative players that we don't know much about.
Yep.
He's got a picture on DraftKings.
Okay. All right. He's got a picture. I get that. So you're going with it. Okay. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with that recent form thing that I was telling you about. And I'll go with the chalk of Sumin Lee. I'll go with the chalk of Sumin Lee here. All right, and now we can give our hot take. I'm so ready for Tommy Fleetwood to win. In my heart, in my soul, I'm ready for him to win.
I like it. I'm going to go that Sergio is the top European in this field. It's tough.
Doesn't win though, or could win.
Absolutely could win. Because it is not to say I love a lot of Euros, including Fleetwood, but I think Sergio is going to be in the hunt overall, because I think the top Euro could easily be the top player. So give me him. I'll give you one more because that's not crazy. I'll say that Ben Yan is the top South Korean. I think he will.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, it's a good bet. I like that one. Okay. All right, last one. Top 20 or top 10 or neither for Jordan Spieth this week?
I give him. I'm gonna say neither. I'll say he's not horrible, but he's
okay.
like 26th.
26, couple of birdie streaks, doesn't get the
I guarantee you this though. He'll say, "Oh man, the game's coming around. It feels best I felt in a long time out there," as he says every single week.
Every time.
But
you can count on it.
We will see. It's the first of 3 weeks in Asia, and Chad, we tried to get it out there. This is going to be the new time for the next couple of weeks. So we will have the Tuesday late show. We'll be answering your questions. And like I said, if you're not a member, it's a great time to hop in because me and Jason tomorrow will definitely be in Slack, talking some weather. When we get ownership, we'll be discussing that. So hop on in there. We'd love for you guys to sign up, not just for golf, for all our sports. So we really recommend it. Any final thoughts before we duck on out of here?
No, enjoy the overnight viewing if you like to stay up late, and enjoy the Sunday morning coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning while you watch Justin Thomas take it down for the second time in 3 years.
I like it.
That's what's going to happen. I want Tommy to win, but Justin Thomas
probably will, sadly. All right, everyone, chat. As always, really appreciate you guys hanging out. Thanks for stopping by. If you can hit the like button on your way out, it really does a ton for us. Thanks to Fantasy Draft. Go sign up there. And like I said, if anyone has any questions, find us on Twitter, find us in Slack. We will be back with you Tuesday for the Zoizo new event next week. Good luck, and we'll see you then.